Hello there, and welcome to the Chugh firm. My name is Neha, and I am the Business Development and Outreach Manager at the Chugh firm. And I'm joined today by two partner attorneys from our New Jersey office, Min Kim and Diya Mathews. Welcome, Min and Diya.
Hey, thanks, Neha. Glad to be here.
Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, so Min and Diya, there's just so much going on. India is being ravaged by COVID, and there's also a proclamation that has come by, the travel ban that went into effect yesterday. Now, what is this proclamation? What does it mean? I want to talk to you guys about it. I also want to talk about the H4EAD biometric suspension that happened. I think it'll benefit our audience to understand what it means for businesses here in America, both the travel ban and the H4EAD suspension. So why don't we just delve into the proclamation first, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty around it on who can travel, who cannot travel, who's banned, and given the fact that consulates in India are closed right now. So I know a lot of non-immigrant workers are stuck, right? And it seems that that functionality is indefinitely, blocked right now. So, Min, if you could give us an overview, and then we could go into details about the proclamation, please. Is that something you're comfortable with right now?
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. There is a lot of misinformation out there because this is, such brand news, and it was breaking just a few days back. But I suppose the important thing to kind of keep in mind is that, this is not the first proclamation that, the sitting president has issued, whether it be the previous administration or the current Biden administration, because of the concerns and dangers of COVID and in the interest of public health and safety, the government has decided that, it's going to err on the side of caution and limit entry into the U.S. to perhaps stem the tide of the spread of the coronavirus. So, but it's not a blanket, bar from entry into the U.S. So there are certain very important exemptions that that do apply. So first and foremost, if someone is a U.S. citizen and a U.S. national, they are accepted from this travel ban, despite the fact that they were in the country of India for let's say the past 14 days. It doesn't remove the fact that they still have to show that they have negative tests for COVID. But as long as that bar is cleared and they prove their overall health and safety, this proclamation, this travel ban will not extend to them. Other individuals are, if someone has a green card, if you and your family are U.S. permanent residents, then you likewise are accepted from this travel ban. A spouse of a U.S. citizen, a spouse of a U.S. green card holder, if you are the parent, the legal guardian of a U.S. citizen child, and that child is under the age of 21, then you likewise are accepted from this presidential proclamation for the travel ban. So this is just a short list. Those are probably the most common exceptions that do apply. I suppose the more attenuated the family relationship. Another one that I can kind of put out there for the audience is that if you are a sibling of a U.S. citizen or a U.S. green card holder, and provided that the both of you are under the age of 21, so therefore minors, you similarly fall within the the exception category. So those are the most common ones to kind of keep in mind. If you fit within that category, I don't think that you are barred from entry, and this proclamation applies to you. There is a way around it, but still, as I said, you still have to demonstrate your overall health and safety involved in testing negative for coronavirus.
Yeah, and for the benefit of our audience who's tuned in right now for this live, if you have questions, we're taking them live right now. We can answer them. The attorneys are here. And so please be sure to leave them in the comment section here, and we'll try to answer them. Now, Diya, my question is, what kind of documentation should one carry, across different categories? What kind of documentation should one carry if they are planning to travel from India?
Right, Neha. So you're talking about individuals who fall within one of the exceptions to
Yes.
the travel ban, right? So these would be the people that the categories that Min mentioned, the US citizens, of course, the permanent residents, and then, the people who have close relationships with those two categories.
Yes.
Well, the first thing, of course, is, carry have proof of the negative COVID test, right? The airline will not let you board the flight until you present that. So, of course, that's the first thing. And then, have the necessary immigration related paperwork. So that is, your visa or your US passport. And then, of course, if you are claiming to be exempt based on your relationship, then carry the documentation around that, whether it is, the birth certificate or the marriage certificate, all of that.
Yeah, and also maybe a copy of the passport of the person on which basis you've,
Yes. The proof of relationship. Yeah, the proof of relationship if you're talking about a U.S. citizen minor child, right?
Yeah.
I would assume, either the birth certificate or the U.S. passport of the child, a copy of the U.S. passport, that should serve.
Right. So that would that also mean that those non-immigrant workers, like those on H-1B or L-1 who have, a U.S. citizen child, they are exempt too, and they can travel without an issue till the time they have a valid visa?
Yes, as long as they have a valid visa. Correct. Yeah. Of course, it would be difficult to get a visa right now. You're going to talk more about that, I assume. But if you have a valid visa, and the only thing preventing you from traveling is a travel ban, then you will rely on the exemption, and you carry the necessary documentation to prove your relationship to the U.S. citizen child or the green card, the green card holder.
Right. Now, what do you think? How long is this ban gonna stay in place? I mean, I feel there's a lot of anxiety in general public about this.
Right. That's the that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I suppose it doesn't remove the fact that people have kind of come to accept the new reality that we're living in. That everyone's been living in for the past year as we kind of struggle through COVID. But the big question is, for how long? How long am I stuck in India? Or how long am I stuck in a certain region of the world where also that specific region has been kind of put into that bucket by this president, as a danger to U.S. citizens here. So the quick answer is TBD. There really is no set firm date that the government has set, saying that we anticipate lifting this the suspension of travel to the U.S. on a certain firm end date. So they are taking it, I suppose, as need to know basis right now. And if it turns out that numbers reduce, then obviously the government will act. But knowing if you were to make educated kind of guesses here, because obviously the audience wants to have a little bit more clarity. Do you know that as I mentioned, the same similar proclamations were already issued for countries like China, for countries like the United Kingdom, and these have been in place for weeks and months. So we're not talking about the president saying that India falls into this bucket, and we anticipate lifting this, in a couple of weeks from now. Recent history has shown that, it has been extended, and for the countries that were a scare to the United States, as far back as 3-4 months ago, they still remain within that same bucket. And, there are still exceptions involved, as I mentioned, but, the overall suspension of travel to the US still applies. So I see no reason why India would be treated any differently.
Right.
So, if I may add to that, I think there's a lot of, obviously people, feel that they were taken by surprise and all of that. But, the good thing, if there is a good thing about the travel ban, is that I think it is, is driven mostly by data, by medical data,
Got it.
coming out of India, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's just a matter of bringing down the numbers, right? We're hearing about what I think 400,000 new cases of
Yeah.
COVID
Sadly.
positive cases coming out of India
Yeah.
on a daily basis. So if that goes down, I think that's the data that the government is going to be looking at, to decide whether the ban should be in place or not. And
Right.
one would think, with all this international aid now going to India, and
Right.
the US itself is doing quite a bit, we would hope that things are contained soon.
Right. And I feel for India. We grew up there. We studied there. Most of us did. We still have family there. So it's really, it's really crazy out there. But I also feel
Hard
for,
to-
non-immigrant workers on work visas, H-1Bs and L-1s. I mean, there was a proclamation that was in place that ended really in March 2021. And now there's another proclamation that has come by. So I think that category kind of is deeply hit. And I feel if there's no urgency to travel, please do not travel. It's as simple as that, And but there are cases where people have to travel because of an emergency to take care of their critically ill parents. Like that's the dichotomy most of us NRIs face here. We are definitely getting a lot of questions. So maybe Diya, you could answer this one for us.
Sure,
It says there is Sahana. She has asked a question. She is currently on O3 visa and in US. She received PhD admit and need to change into F1 for joining school in fall of 2021. Now, since consulates, as we know, are closed in India temporarily or indefinitely at this point in time, she's worried about the timeline. And what is, she's asking about the scenario that was last year and what options does it have? And I would also like you to touch upon the whole F1 category because, the F1, they are typically get into US around June, July. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good segue into the next, the category, the student visa category. It's very important. And I'm surprised that, the proclamation itself didn't directly address it. So it would seem that there is no direct, direct exemption for F1 student visa holders, right? But what they can do is they can apply for a national interest exemption. So for a student, for a person in India who already has a student visa stamp, they can travel provided they're going to be starting school in fall, right? So August is the cutoff, August 1st, I believe. And in fact, I think this news, so this exemption is part of the national interest exemption rules, which are in place for, pretty much all the countries which are hit by the travel ban. So Min alluded to that earlier. So they can always avail of the national interest exemption, right? Even people who don't have who don't fall in one of the accepted categories. In order to submit a national interest exemption, you still have to apply to the consulate. So that's the challenge because, getting an appointment with the consulate is not going to be easy right now. But let's assume you somehow manage, to put in the application, the national interest exemption. Students can avail of the national interest exemption, the NIE, provided they're going to start classes in fall after August 1, 2021. So for those students, they can do that. But, again, it's a matter of, how soon you can schedule your visa interview. So, maybe just try do that from here, get an appointment from here before you travel out. And then, plan your travel accordingly. The other option for somebody who's here might be to just do a change of status. So I think she said she is in O3 status.
Yes.
She could consider the change of status to F1. The downside to filing the change of status in the US is that it takes an unusually long period of time now to get the F1 adjudicated, right? I think we have cases that we filed beginning of 2020, which are still not approved yet. They're still under adjudication. So, and depending on your individual situation, you might not be able to start classes until the F1 is approved.
Yeah.
Right? So I would encourage Sahana to get, she can reach out to us and we can talk to her about her specific situation. But these are two options. Either just, do a change of status in the US so you're avoiding travel out. Or if you do have to go to the, to a consulate and apply for a visa there, then, and in some ways it's faster, right? That's what we used to advise people earlier, instead of doing a change of status, just go to the consulate.
Right.
But see if you can get the appointment. So that's the first thing. And then see if you'll qualify for the national interest exemption.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like, the universities here in the United States of America are really seeing the burden of not having enough F1 visas from the international students here, right?
Yeah.
So I would really, but this is also a tricky situation. It's COVID, right?
Yeah.
So the government, I think, is making a very informed decision there. There's another question, and I would like Min to answer this, please. So this question is coming from Anil. He's asking that he came to India recently for family visit, and he has completed consular interview on April 22nd, but he got his passport with visa stamped on 5/5/2021, which is after travel ban to USA from India. He's saying he has house and other financial commitments in United States of America, and he must return to work in USA as soon as possible to support his family. He needs assistance. Before you answer that question, Min, if any of you is looking for legal advice, this is not legal advice. This is just a discussion that we're having here. And if you do need legal advice, feel free to reach out to us at info@chugh.com. That's the email ID, and just mention the India travel ban and this webcast, and we'd be happy to get you all the help that you need. Now, Min, could you answer that question for Anil, please?
Right. So unlike the student visa, discussion, that Diya just kind of referenced. For individuals in different visa categories, such as the H-1B here, the national interest, exception, unfortunately, is not as direct and does not directly apply, meaning that there is a general sort of like catch-all for individuals, applying for an H-1B or L-1 admission or some of the other work, visa related categories, that the national interest exception, the NIE, would apply for those individuals if it is determined that their role in the U.S. will provide some, I suppose the language specifically used by the State Department is vital support for critical infrastructure. So that's a mouthful, and the challenge is, they list some examples and they list some different verticals and industries where that might apply. I suppose if for a lot of folks who target the H-1B because they're looking for a job in the IT sector. Luckily, IT is one of those industries that the State Department does cite, saying that this catch-all NIE exception might apply for that. But the thing that is a little bit confusing is what is vital support? We can establish that critical infrastructure such as IT, or telecommunications, etc., that falls within that bucket. But what is vital support? Vital support is, as Diya, as you mentioned, it is on a case-by-case basis. So, for this gentleman, I would ask that, whether it be our law firm here, or if he has a trusted legal counsel that he can turn to and provide his direct facts on, the type of job that is waiting for him in the U.S., that attorney will be better equipped to help analyze whether, this specific person might kind of fall within this general exception. But just for the point of clarity, the State Department is on record saying that like one example of a difference, because the NIE, this support for critical infrastructure, it was fairly general before. So a lot of senior ranking managers and senior executives of really important companies out there, really large companies, they were able to kind of cite this exception, saying that I apply under this, and therefore, I'm able to visit the U.S. Using my
Right.
L1 status. Well, the State
Right.
Department is now on record saying that they don't consider routine meetings by a senior executive of a global organization or providing general oversight, operational oversight for operations that are happening in the U.S. That's
Right.
not vital support.
Right.
So unfortunately, the State Department hasn't gone so far to exactly define what they consider vital support to qualify under this, this national interest exception. It really is on a case-by-case basis. But if
Yeah.
you do work in a specific industry, specific vertical like IT, telecommunications, obviously healthcare, those are critical to the sustained operation and to sustained welfare of the United States, then I would ask that you perhaps confer with a trusted attorney and see if your exact specific case might fall under this.
Right. I mean, there's a comment by Hemant Gupta. He says they put out NIEs, but having no visa appointments defeats the purpose. How should one tackle the situation? And I think that's a very valid point. I mean, the consulates are closed. You can give whatever exemptions you want, but it's not going to help anybody. Right, Diya? What do you have to say about that?
You're right. I mean, and that's, it's a it's a conundrum, right? But I wonder if they could go to another country. There might be consulates which are open to third country nationals applying, right? If you can meet all the travel requirements to those countries and see if you can qualify for a visa interview there, just to put in the national interest exemption application, that might work. We know
But
that Nepal doesn't entertain, right? Colombo probably not right now. So you might have to look around a little bit, but that could be an option, if it's really urgent.
But what's happening, what I've heard from a lot of people is that, for example, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, all of these have closed their borders for international travelers. So, I mean, and also US consulates across the globe are working at a very limited capacity. So we don't even know if they're entertaining third country nationals anymore, like they used to pre-pandemic, right? So that, and there's no way we can find out unless there's a communication from that particular consulate, which we all know.
Well, some of them you can also email. They might not respond immediately. Some consulates, not the Indian consulates, but some of the other countries, they will take email inquiries. So you could even, email them and see. You've done a lot of work in this area, so you might have some insights. But that's something for somebody who really has to travel. That could be an option.
Okay. There's another question, and this person wants to know, they are a green card holder and their spouse has B1, B2 visa. They were recently married and they are here now, but is the spouse exempted from the proclamation?
Min, you want to take that?
Yeah.
Spouse of a green card holder,
Right, spouse of a green card holder, yes, that's a qualifying relationship where, it doesn't apply.
It's a direct exemption, so I don't think they should have any trouble traveling.
Fantastic. That's some good news. Now, what document would she be required to carry? Min, would you throw some insight on that?
Right. I mean, obviously, you have to, prove the existence of the marriage. So, I suppose the typical documents, marriage certificates. I mean, if there's other, further evidence kind of beyond that to prove that, you've been married and, you share a life together, I suppose all that, all that is relevant. So, and outside of like, the typical, things that you need for passports and everything to travel, back and forth, all that would be relevant.
Right. So they'd have to prove this to the airline staff and also upon arrival here.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Diya, this question would be for you. Is NIE only for H4 parents or all H4 category, like the entire H4? People who are just married but no child, how about H4 students? I'm not quite sure if I understood the question. There's just too many points.
So anybody can present an NIE application. Any visa category can put an NIE application, right? But it depends whether, are they qualified? So I would imagine there are certain listed categories, that obviously would qualify for the NIE. So journalists, student visa holders, and then, the one that Min mentioned, critical support for infrastructure. So those are the ones that are more likely to prevail in an NIE application. With the others, nobody's stopping them from filing an application, but you want to see whether you're likely to be approved.
Yeah. People are asking about H-1B. Does that fall into any of the exemption categories for travel? I think, did we answer this before? I think we did.
An H-1B holder could qualify for an NIE, provided they meet the criteria that that mentioned before.
Right, which is you should have a kid.
Yeah. So for example, I think we've had cases approved where people were working, in COVID related, containment of COVID, those kind of industries, right? Biomedical research,
Right.
infrastructure, those kind of industries. We've succeeded in getting NIE applications approved.
Right.
So it's not just your visa category. It is what reason you can show for wanting to be in the US.
Okay. I think we just have enough time left for one more question. Min, actually, we have a lot of questions. I don't know. Let's see how we do with this. We are getting a lot of questions. So this person asks, I called CBP 3 times and 2 of them confirmed that she can travel, but one said she needs to have green card. They are confused. I don't know what status they are on. So
yeah, I don't know if it's a good idea to take legal advice. I mean, you can call CBP, for general information on how they are, likely to process passengers into the country. But, if it's specific legal advice, you're better off, talking to an immigration practitioner.
Yes, and you can write to us, info@chugh.com for that. And there's a question someone has about stamping H-1B visa. It's impossible to get their visa stamped outside of the home country, such as Dubai or Qatar or any other country, given its current situation in India, and travel from there back to the US after 14 days. If yes, how do we go about it? And is there any potential risks in the stamping? And shouldn't the dropbox be open?
Even the dropbox applications are at a minimum, right? So I think there's the easy way to look at it, right? If you already have a visa, right, and the only thing that's stopping you from traveling is a travel ban, then the easier solution might be to quarantine in a different country, right? A country that will take people from India, quarantine there for 14 days and then travel to the US, right? And this is a strategy that is already being adopted by the other countries which have travel bans against them, like, China, South Africa, the UK. So that's for people who already have visas. Now, this question, right? I think this person doesn't have a visa stamped already. So they are in a different bucket, right? Because they are necessarily dependent on the consulate,
right,
being willing to give them a visa interview and do the stamping, etc. So that I think we might get some more information in the next few days. Like them,
it's just so new right now. Everything is just so new. Everybody's trying to process this information. Min, I know you have to go for a meeting at 3:30.
I can stick around for a few minutes.
Fantastic. So we can
extend if I can just just quickly add to what Diya was mentioning. I understand that a lot of people, a lot of travelers out there are frustrated with the limited operations at the consulate. So I suppose I can cite one specific example of a foreign national that I represented. The person was not of Indian descent. He was Chinese, but he had his visa interview canceled by the U.S. consular post in China about 3 times, and he started. So he was supposed to return back to the U.S. I believe it was August of last year. So it's been delayed for obviously many months, and I mean it happens. It's frustrating. It's not going to be a permanent thing. I mean, he just kept kind of citing the the emergency involved for him to return back to the U.S. And I suppose a good selling point and what ended up working for him was he was equipped with a supporting letter from from his U.S. employer that's going to receive him back, and the company was able to list out very real, tangible reasons why this person was a critical resource, and the exact assignment that the company had for him upon his return, and how it was a direct correlation to where the company was striving to get to in the near
Right.
future. So it was an effort to finally convince the consulate that they should carve out an exception. And to my understanding, the U.S. consulate in China is still operating at a very limited capacity.
Yeah.
But despite the fact of that, this person was finally able to secure his visa interview, get his passport stamped, and return back to the U.S. So it's going to take a little bit of effort, and I suppose this is where counsel comes in.
Right. Which is closed right now, indefinitely.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, but like legal counsel, like if anyone has a trusted attorney, that they can go to help them draft a letter that that their company, that their employer is willing to sign off on, that's just one more tool in your toolbox in order to kind of prove to the consulate that they should carve out an exception. This is an emergency where the company needs to receive that person back, and maybe that will get it done.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But like I said, the consulates need to be open for that, which isn't happening. We don't know. We have no idea. There's no clear communication on that, right? On when that would open. Diya, this question's for you. This person says their Dropbox appointment was canceled abruptly. Is there any possibility they can request reschedule in order because it was canceled? And in this situation, it's extremely difficult to get a slot once they reopen, because you might have a better luck winning $1 million lottery at this point than getting that consulate appointment.
Unfortunately, Neha, and there's many people in the same situation, right? Everybody has the same issue. Interviews getting canceled over and over again. Even the back appointments getting canceled. I would urge people to be a little patient, because I think the consulates will also develop some more bandwidth in a couple of weeks. So instead of everybody trying to, get in right now, I would say just, if you could bear with them a couple of weeks, I think things will improve drastically.
Yeah, I don't understand. I feel sometimes that US should probably go back to, the era prior to 2004, when consular processing used to happen. You could get your visa stamped using a Dropbox here on US soil.
Before you traveled out, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think given the COVID situation, that could be a great option. I think the State Department should think about it if they're tuned into this.
Right. Yeah, that was a while ago. As you said, I think it's been about 15, 16 years since they stopped doing that.
Yes.
And, there are some things which are peculiar to the United States immigration system. And this is one of them, that the minute you exit the US, you need you're working with a different agency, the Department of State, to get a visa to come back.
It is so complicated. It's just so hard for people to understand what is it that it takes to be on a visa, right? There's a question from Yamini Vashisht. Yamini, I think we've already answered this question. She's asking, would people on H-1B fall into any of the exemption categories for travel to US? Yes, if you have a US citizen kid under the age of 21, if you can prove prove the relationship using the birth certificate and the passport, US passport, that would help.
And or one of the national interest exceptions, if she qualifies for that.
Yes. Oh God. Ramya Rao has a question. Hi, my husband is on H-1B, stuck in India. He traveled due to his father's demise. I'm so sorry, Ramya. It's just heartbreaking what's happening in India right now. He has valid extension, but just needs stamping. He's eligible for Dropbox, and that appointment got canceled. We have US-born children, but have hard time getting stamping appointments. What can we do? I think everybody who's on an H-1B visa, who had to travel for an emergency to India, has this exact question. When are the consulates going to open, or when are any exemptions going to be made, or when will the Dropbox start at least? Many people don't even qualify for Dropbox, although it's been extended for 48 months now. But still, so sorry, Ramya, there's no clear answer to that. And just before I go into the next question, just want to say very quickly, this is not a legal advice. This is just a discussion for the benefit of you, because the travel ban, we've been getting a lot of questions, and everybody is quite anxious about what's going on. So that's why we decided to go live and answer those questions for you. If you need legal advice, info@chugh.com, mention this webcast. My name is Neha. We have partner attorneys Min Kim and Diya Mathews with us today. Min, Yamini is again asking, based on data, when can we say when the US consulates would open in India? Probably you should become a researcher now.
Oh, man. I mean, here, I want to mention once again, this is not legal advice. So, please do not take this with, any kind of assurance that, a firm date where the consulates in India will be reopening. I mean, just generally speaking, it's tough to say. It's, I've come to notice more now that because of because of nature of how quickly things happen, especially with COVID, a lot of what the State Department, which is a government agency that that controls consular operations, falls under that jurisdiction, they make announcements on change in policy through non-traditional means. So no longer are there memos or official press releases, but a lot of everything is kind of blasted out through social media channels. The State Department has their Twitter account, and so it's because of that direct access. If folks are on Twitter, follow the State Department, follow the U.S. Embassy in India, for change in office operations and what the schedule is, because a lot of times receiving that information directly from the source through their Twitter feed, that's probably the best strategy there. So I mean, that's what our law firm does as well. Because of this shift in how the government agencies release information through these non-traditional means. If there's a way for you to kind of retrieve that directly, that might be the best bet.
Right. And we do a lot of webinars here at the Chugh firm for everybody's benefit. We explain there are newsletters that you could sign up for if you go to www.chugh.com, or like this page, follow us here on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram. And, you could follow us and you could find all the latest information. That's the best way to get in touch with us. So Preeta Upadhyaya, she's asking, would you recommend getting an H-1B visa stamp, second time stamping, done at a different country as a third country national, given the current situation? I think, Diya, we discussed this. I think this is kind of question that keeps coming up again and again and again. If you could just summarize it for the audience.
Yeah, there is no restriction on going to another country for your visa interview. It's just a question of whether that country, that particular consulate, is willing to take your application, whether they will entertain your application, right? So we know from the US, a lot of people go to Canada, they go to Mexico, right? Formerly it used to be Jamaica. So there are a few consulates which are obviously known for taking third country nationals. And then with the other consulates, they might not be willing to take you unless you can show, why you're there, right? You're not just doing, consulate shopping, right? You're actually there for a good reason. So I would, encourage everyone to do their own research. There is no, if they accept you for the interview, then it should proceed, in the normal course. I don't think they will hold that against you that you've chosen to present your application there. But of course, it's always, we historically we've told clients, it's always best to go to your home country, because your home country is the consulate. The consulates there are, they're the ones that are most well trained to look at your application, to look for red flags and all of that. So that's why there is a little bit of hesitation from the other consulates to take third country national applications. But in this situation, I think there is definitely no harm in pursuing that.
Okay. Okay. I think that also answers a lot of questions. MK Charanteja, he's saying that um, what about, again, the same question, what about traveling to different country and stay there for 15 days and
Yeah.
apply for a visa interview? He attended an emergency visa appointment in New Delhi yesterday and was given a 221G on the basis of, I'm not sure if, I can't read this, the exact
Yeah.
question there for some reason, but he has a peculiar scenario and is asking for NIE exemption on the first day of travel ban in New Delhi. Now, that's a very peculiar question. I guess, I think it'll be better that you take some legal advice on
Yeah.
that.
But in general, Neha, I think we can also say that if you've already tried, if you've attempted a visa interview in your home country, right, and you ran into difficulties there, it's unlikely that a different country consulate would then, take your application, because you will have to disclose that you
Yeah.
already put in an application and, it's on hold, or, went into administrative processing.
Right.
And with that situation, I don't think a third country would be willing to process it.
Okay, we have another green card related question, Min. So Subramanian Anant Narayanan, he's asking if husband is, a green card holder and is spouse exempted from travel ban to travel in a B1, B2 visa category. I think we answered that earlier on in our discussion. Yes, you'd have to prove that you're married
Right.
with all the, documentation.
The person
And
already has a visitor visa, then it should be all right.
should be all right. Okay, so you'll just have to prove, make sure you have your marriage certificate at the very least and other documentations to prove that you guys are married. Kanupriya Keshan, she's asking about H4 students. So we know that there are certain exemptions for F1 students, but there are a lot of H4 visa holders also who are students. What about them?
I would assume that they will not benefit from the relaxations for the F1 visa category unless they are applying for an F1 visa. I don't think they can apply under the NIE, which is specific for F1s, right? If they are choosing to travel as H4 visa holders, then they would probably have to rely on one of the other exceptions.
Right. Okay. I think we're getting a lot of similar kind of questions. I think mostly those who are on H1B visa, they're asking about NIE and where can they find the NIE eligibility and what is the application process. This person, Utkarsha Hazarnes, needs stamping on their passport. Min, do you want to take that up or?
Right. It's I mean, there really is no like one size fits all, answer to that. There's a reason why the State Department kind of brushed it in broad strokes, saying that vital support for critical infrastructure. Yeah, they help kind of cite some examples on what they believe that terminology might mean as it pertains to someone looking to come to the U.S. as an H-1B worker. That they're working in this industry, they're, not doing this, but they haven't really, kind of defined it very in a detailed fashion. Mm-hmm. So the reason why they do that is they leave it to the consulates directly. So, not every consulate is going to interpret that guidance in the same way. And a lot of how these consulates, operated, in addition to, Twitter and social media that I mentioned before, when it comes to specific application processes and the mechanics involved in applying for, a national interest exception under this category, look to that consulate website. The website will be, a great tool on, the eligibility criteria, exactly what to do and how to file, in addition to, kind of securing the visa interview once that arises. So it's, the website for the consulate is probably the best source because they're really, because there are so many consulates in so many, different regions around the world and everyone's kind of dealing with this, with the different layers of COVID. There really is not going to be one size fits all rule that pertains to that exception.
Yeah, I hope, Kanupriya, this answers your question. There's no clear way, there's no one size fits all, but I really hope you got some insight at least, and if you feel that you should need a legal counsel, be free to get in touch with us, info@chugh.com. Now that a lot of H-1B visa holders are stuck in India, right? There's a very valid question coming in, and Diya, maybe you can throw some light on it. Sai Ajay Rajesh is asking, how long can he work in India being on an H-1B without affecting tax laws? And how can he prove this on paper to his firm for them to approve of this? I think that's valid given the fact that consulates are closed and it's an employment-based visa.
Right. Yeah, I think ever since the pandemic started, there's been a lot of, discussion around the tax implications for employers and employees, as a result of working in different jurisdictions, right? So it could be just with, different states within the US, right? Because your employer might be agnostic, right? They don't care where you are, as long as you do the work within the US. And then there is, different level of laws which come in when you go overseas and you work from there. So I'm not going to touch on the tax aspects of it because we are not tax experts. I advise everyone to, consult with their, with their employers and with the tax professionals for any advice on tax. From an immigration standpoint, though, we can say if you are if you are an Indian national and you're working in India, you're authorized to do that, right? And you could work for somebody. The Indian law doesn't stop you from providing services for a foreign person or organization, right? So that is okay from an immigration standpoint, because while you are in India, you're not really coming into conflict with US immigration laws, right? US immigration law kicks in the minute you are on US soil. So while for you to work from India for a US company, that from a, like an immigration standpoint is really not an issue, provided, you are authorized to work in India. There could be, your employer might have some reservations about this, if there are security issues involved. So for example, if you're working in certain industries, you need to maintain certain protocols, they might not want you to work outside the US, right? So that's something that you should obviously, consult with them on. But from an immigration standpoint, it's okay for you to work in India. I mean, if you are an Indian citizen, you can work in India. Nobody's going to take that away from you.
Which is a valid point, because H-1B really just kicks in when you land on US soil. You are in India, you can continue working it, but the only thing that one needs to remember is that, the company must be okay with it. And definitely, reach out to an attorney who can maybe help you formulate the language that you might need,
Right.
So,
this is, a related question. Sorry to cut you off, but a related question. So sometimes clients will ask, okay, oh, Diya, I have an H-1B visa stamp, I have an L-1 visa stamp, I have a B-1, B-2. What is my status? When you are outside the US, you don't have any immigration status, right? The question of status comes in only when you enter the US, and how you enter the US, whether you use your H-1 visa or your L-1 visa or your B-1, B-2, that determines your status in the US. But for anybody who's in India, working out of India, there's no question of holding US status, US immigration status.
Yeah, that's a valid point. That's an absolutely, I mean, we forget that we are actually Indian nationals. These are, Indian nationals working in the US, and that's why you need the visa. But in India, you don't need a visa. That's your country.
Right. I think it's similar to the folks who asked when this, the travel ban was announced. They said, oh, can we travel to India? Right. And
that's your
and
country.
Travel, yeah, you're a US citizen. There is no restriction. I don't think India would, have a restriction on Indian citizens traveling to India. But yeah.
Right. I mean, there are a few more questions. I will request your expertise on this. Ranjal Gupta asks, can we have an emergency appointment for Dropbox appointments? I'm not sure, because the Dropbox appointments were also canceled. Can you throw some, insight on that?
Right. I think it's more regular now for if someone is able to, for however reason, able to get a Dropbox appointment and then submit their documentation through that. They've been now asked to schedule an in-person interview. So it's more the other way around. And to my knowledge, the Dropbox operation has been fairly limited, if pretty much non-existent.
So the short answer is
No.
okay. Okay. Ganesh Gohel, he's asking, during this COVID, I am currently working on receipt for new company and got second RFE. What would be my option to avoid going back to India if in case the visa is rejected? What do you think, Min?
So the I-94 has expired and he is awaiting a decision on the change of employer petitions. Is that?
Yeah, it looks like it. He's currently working on receipt from a new company and got second RFE on that receipt. So he's asking for his options to avoid going back to India in case, the visa is rejected.
Well, I mean, so his I-94 is expired. And so basically the change of employer requested a back-started start date. I mean, recent experience has, kind of shown me that I think it's going to be somewhat maybe overly optimistic to think that, USCIS is going to, kind of backdate the start date there. This is for a change of employer. So, I mean, if there's no, kind of blatant,
right,
lapses in status violations, then perhaps. But I think it's more likely where the approval is going to be issued whenever the decision is rendered, and provided everything is approved. There might be it might only be approved for consular processing. So, thinking that the person can avoid needing to travel outside the U.S. to process their visa, I'm not how really that is.
Yeah, so wait for the decision to come by, Ganesh. I think that would be really helpful.
Maybe they could also consider filing a motion to reopen or an appeal of the decision. I mean, of course, only if it is, if there are real grounds for pursuing it. But again, they might want to check, they should discuss with the practitioner to make sure they're not accruing any unlawful presence, beyond a certain number of days, etc. So there are some specifics around it. Somebody can advise him properly on it.
Okay, so please refer to an attorney because your case is very specific. And I think Min and Diya have been able to explain it to a certain extent, but there are a lot of technicalities involved. So it'll be best to really just, get a counsel on it. And if you need a counsel from us, info@chugh.com, mention this webcast and we'd be happy to help you if you need that. There is, I think this is again a question that's come back again. So this guy, he's H-1B with US born, needing stamping. Then for emergency appointment, does one really need an NIE even though a person is exempted from travel ban?
If a person clearly falls within one of the exceptions, they would not need an NIE.
Perfect. Okay, that answers. And I think, Subhash is asking, can we get Canada visitor visa currently to go for US stamping? Sorry, Subhash, Canada has closed its borders. No, that can't happen right now.
It's for non-essential travel, right? Non-essential travel to Canada is banned right now, but possibly, and I think then you might have handled some of those, right? If there's essential travel, work related, etc., you might qualify.
Right, and people are kind of scared off by that term, essential travel. My understanding is that term is, I mean, there's room to to lawyer and to argue on the essentiality of one's travel back and forth. So, I've represented some foreign national. I mean, obviously, people are highly skilled and they're very good at what they do, but for their specific role at this company, I mean, kind of saying that it's essential for them to go back and forth. I mean, I personally thought it was a stretch, but we were able to get it done. So, don't be scared off by the term essential travel and thinking that, what your perceived activity is doesn't qualify under that. Confer with a trusted attorney, and provided that you have the support of your employer to prove what they deem to be essentiality of that travel. It's surprising how persuaded the CBP officers might be at the port of entry.
Well,
It's
maybe
all
it was
about
your
being
good lawyering, man. That is probably what it was.
Yes. So stay persistent, okay? Okay, I think Suprita has another question. She's asking, can someone on an H-1B who is stuck in India and is about to join a new employer and has a valid approved I-797A, can they get paid as per US payroll? I would imagine she's stuck in India, so that's why she's considering whether they can get paid in US payroll. What do you think, Diya? Can they?
Again, I mean, from an immigration standpoint, yes. I think we've had situations where, people go on vacations or maybe they take an extended vacation and they continue to draw a salary in the US into their US bank account. And there's there's nothing stopping the US employer from paying them in US dollars in the US.
Yeah.
Of course, subject to the necessary, tax deductions and all of that.
Right. Right.
There might be tax, implications. That is something that, they would have to check with their employer or a tax professional.
Okay. So, Suprita, I hope that answers your question. We are, in the last 5 minutes of this webcast, and I think we've spoken a lot about a lot of trouble that everybody is going through, and rightfully so. I mean, we are, in the middle of a pandemic. India, the numbers are, surging there, and everybody is obviously in a lot of anxiety, but some good has come by, and which is that USCIS has decided to suspend H4 biometric, that requirement that was put into place in March of 2019 by the previous administration. It's now announced that it will be suspended. I don't know when it's going to get suspended, but I think our attorneys here can get some insight. I definitely think, Diya and Min, this is such a sigh of relief for so many people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Min, what is your take on this?
Right. It's, I think everyone will be in agreement that, this is nothing but good news. We don't know. I mean, I suppose because there hasn't been an official announcement yet, we don't know how this new policy change will kind of change the landscape, and who will fall under this, this exception to submitting the biometrics. I mean, is it pretty much all encompassing where people who have scheduled biometrics already, they no longer have to, attend those appointments, or is it more limited than that? I suppose my takeaway is that it's always best to err on the side of caution. If someone does have a scheduled biometrics and it's coming up next week, 2 weeks from now, still plan to attend, unless you hear directly otherwise from USCIS. It's always best to attend those appointments, and it's good to finally see that after so many attempts by the immigration bar to Homeland Security and USCIS specifically, that these processing delays are just becoming too much of a burden, that they actually somewhat listened and absorbed those that constructive feedback and said, okay, we're going to try to do something about it. Maybe we're going to reanalyze the need to capture these biometrics. Maybe perhaps we can undo it for now. And everything that I've heard, as I said, there's no official announcement yet, but everything that I've heard up till now is that it's only going to be for a temporary measure. USCIS is never going to commit that they're going to get rid of this for the long term. But it's going to be for a few months. It might even stretch out to 1 year, just to help them kind of catch up on their backlog cases.
Absolutely. And it makes so much sense given the whole COVID situation. I mean, none of us are traveling, and yet, the USCIS had forced these non-immigrant workers to go into these centers to get biometrics, which not only, delayed their approvals. Do you think, Diya, that now the approvals would come by faster than it used to?
That's certainly the hope, right? Yeah, because before the biometrics appointment requirement came in, we would see the L2s, the H4s, they were getting adjudicated fairly quickly. Maybe not within 15 days, with the primary application, but soon after, within a few months. Certainly not, the 12 or 15 or 18 months that we are seeing now.
Yes.
So I would think that with the biometric being out of the way, they can approve everything. The same center, the same officer or service center can approve everything in one go.
Perfect. I hope similar thing happens with Department of State also. All the people who are stuck with the whole H-1B stamping related issue stuck in India. I really hope that the State Department can exempt for certain cases that they feel are right. We are in the last 1 minute of our webcast. I just want to thank everybody today for joining. My name is Neha. I'm the Business Development and Outreach Manager here at Chugh firm, and we're joined by partner attorneys Min Kim and Diya Mathews. If you ever need any advice, this was certainly not legal advice. If you ever need any advice, feel free to call us. Our information should be on the website chugh.com. We are from the New Jersey office, and be sure to like this page. If you have any questions, then post them here or send them to info@chugh.com. Thank you again. Stay safe, everybody. Take care.